Oh, Alonzo, right on time. Love it, man. I was wondering if you were going to be coming on. Like, I'm
You know what?
watching.
When you're a husband and a father, things come up all the time.
I'm sitting here behind the screen, just looking at this empty chair. I'm like, man, okay, guess we're going to get there. I didn't even see you there. I thought I was just going to come on and be like, where's Alonzo at? Oh, all right. Well, welcome everybody to.
Welcome, yeah.
All right, welcome to Head in the Clouds from Go Cloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm joined by Alonzo Coleman. We are respectively the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Marketing Officer here at Go Cloud Careers. We are excited to be with you. Hopefully, you got that little island feel. I know I told Alonzo I was going to play that. He's like, I need to go to the islands. I'm like, well, you could just come to St. Petersburg, Florida. That's how we feel every day. But, maybe he'll be here soon. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
You never know, Chris. You never know.
Anyway. So today, we're going to be talking about some tech career secrets, particularly some that will be helpful in how to get promoted in tech. So let's just get straight to it. We're going to be talking about the importance of impressing the right people in the workplace.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, ultimately, you're probably going to want to impress your manager and not so much your peers. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be playing friendly with your peers and your colleagues.
Right.
So
we're going to talk about how.
Exactly. So we are here. Let us know where you are from in the chat box. There's actually somebody here in Tampa. Marquis Solomon is in Tampa. Hey, I'm right across the bay from you here in St. Petersburg. So hopefully you will be passing that Azure certification soon. Good luck to you. So today we're going to be talking about impressing the right people at the right time in the right situations. So this is actually a topic that Mike picked. So just to give you a little background, we, the three of us, actually kind of throw in topics for our shows, and we pick from the topics as to which one we're going to do each week. And so this week was Mike's topic, but unfortunately, Mike's not here. Mike's had to tend to some family business, so he's not able to join us tonight. So we're still going to be talking about Mike's topic.
Yes.
With that being said, you might get the benefit of another episode about this with Mike. So I'm sure Mike has some different insights, probably a lot more insights to share with us with his psychology background and his medicine background.
Yes.
And his 25 years of experience of playing office politics. That's basically what this boils down to when we're talking about impressing the right people at the right time in the right situations. That's what it all points to. So I'm pretty sure we'll be having a round two of this discussion. But today, you've got me and Alonzo steering the ship. Let me tell you about a couple of things that we've got going on at Go Cloud Careers before we get into this conversation. So, and Tyrone there in the chat box will be helping me out by sharing some of these links. So the first thing that I want to do, I have to make everybody aware that this discount countdown, the 30% discount ends Friday. 30% discount ends Friday. Alonzo, how many calls have you had this week? How many people have you talked to that said that they missed, that they saw that it was at 60% and they saw it was at 50% and they wanted to wait? How many people have you talked to that have said that?
I've lost count. Now, listen, everyone, whether you're in New Jersey, whether you're in Dubai, whether you're in India, whether you're anywhere, do not wait. Everyone is playing chicken to see if this is going to last and if we're going to have other discount. We're not. We went from 60. We told everyone at the end of 2022. We told everyone at the beginning of 2023. We're going to start off at 60, down to 50, currently down to 30, and we will finalize at 15%. After that, that's it. Okay, we are doing new things as we grow. Our discounts are, the more we grow, the less discounts we're going to have. And now we're at that point where it's not happening anymore. So do not wait. Do not run that risk. And on top of you running that risk for 5% discount, 7% discount, you are doing an opportunity cost of losing thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars because you want to shave a few $100s off here and there. So don't play chicken with your career and your investment with who you are as a potential cloud architect. Take the investment in yourself, the investment in your future, and do it today. That's all I'll say on that.
Yep. And Tyrone shared the link in the chat box, and there's your discount code. Last time 30. Wonder why it says last time 30. So thank you for sharing that, Alonzo. I guess upset is the right word. It upsets me when I hear that people are waiting, and they're waiting and waiting, and it's we don't want you to miss the opportunities that are available to you. And we understand if you're not financially able, that's understandable. I get it. But if you have the ability to, don't play chicken. We've had this out for months that this is how it's going to be. We're not changing. We're not lying. We're not hoodwinking. We're not pulling any fast ones. 60, 50, 30, 15. Boom. That we laid it out there. You saw it at the beginning of the video, I believe. I still have the graphic there. So
let's interject this, Chris, as also we don't haggle. We do not haggle. We do not haggle. We do not. Did I just say we do not haggle? Yeah. We are not going to. You can't just email us, call us, throw an arbitrary number out there, arbitrary percentage.
Gonzo
is what you're willing to pay. These are our prices. This is the value that we're adding. Talk to a lot of our folks who have testimonials about how they changed their lives. So you have to ask yourself what's important to you, and are you willing to commit, and are you willing to invest in yourself financially and chronologically to come out with the career that you want.
Yeah. All right. So we got Gonzo in the house.
Hey,
we got Greg in the house.
And then the Cape Town Wonder, Tyrone, of course.
We got Mr. Businessman. I know who you are.
Businessman.
Not gonna say your name since you didn't. Since you didn't put it in your handle. We know who you are, though. Glad you're here. Yeah. Next thing, Thursday, join Alonzo and I on our How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar. If you want to learn how to become a cloud architect without any experience or with experience, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. If you want to learn everything that you need to learn and you want to ask us questions, join us for that free webinar. That webinar will be this Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Alonzo and I will be there. We'll be taking your questions. We'll be sharing a presentation with you. We'll be having a lot of fun. So yes, so make sure to join us for that. And Tyrone will be sharing that link in the chat box as well. All right, so I think we've done enough talking. I think everybody's here to hear our special guest and not hear us. So let's just get straight on down to it. Let's see, who do we have behind curtain number 1? Let's see what we got here.
Who do we got? Well. Who do we have here? Dr. Cooper Johnson.
Yeah. There we go. You're walking out on stage at David Letterman, just like boom, boom, boom.
Let's
hey, Chris, next time play that Pink Panther theme now. You should know better.
That's a copyright. I can't do that. They can't.
Oh, okay.
At least we can do that. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah,
there you go. I'll let you remember that when I get my next test. Oh, that's tomorrow. That's Thursday. Yeah. Let's get ready to rumble.
Oh, I got a question for you. How long have people known about the test?
Since the beginning of the semester, if they read the syllabus and came to class.
Well, if I remember correctly, hopefully they're not trying to gamble their average with another retest.
Well, yeah. Is this one of those tests that they've been able to take all semester?
Well, they open up at different times, but I've got like 6 people still haven't taken test 1 yet. Got 14 that haven't taken test 2, and I'm just smiling and say, "See you next semester." Retention.
Oh man. Hmm.
And they can't
All right.
afford to buy me because I'd be living in the Bahamas, all relaxing, drinking cold beer. But anyway,
You in the Bahamas. That would be a
Yeah, the
that would
Bahamas,
be
that is one of my favorite places.
exactly. I guess I'd have to take your mother too, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah. There's that. There's that. So, all right. Well, let's get on with our topic of discussion.
Whoa.
So, impressing management versus impressing your peers. Who wants to start with this? Because I mean, we can go a lot of different ways with this topic.
We can, but I definitely think that we need to provide that dividing line between impressing your manager and your peers, what that is, and the difference between that and sucking up. Let's get it out there. I think everyone has had that person who they're trying to make themselves stand out from the crowd, if you will, in the totally wrong way. They're not cohesive. They want to make themselves shine and be that person. I can do this, and I have experience in this, and blah 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 blah, while inadvertently trying to make them, whether it's purposely or unconsciously, if you will, they're making everyone else look bad. Don't be that person. And if you know that person, you understand what I'm talking about. What about you, gentlemen?
I'll tell you what, if you come across as a suck up or what I call a brown noser or whatever, however you want to call
I
it.
was sitting here thinking that. I'm like, yeah.
But if you come across with that, in your organization, your peers are going to notice that very quickly, and you need to be very careful of being that tag being put onto you, because if so, then you're going to have a problem. Your peers will undermine you. Yep. They will separate. They will leave you over in the corner by yourself and everything. You've got to come across as a good team member, okay? And if you come across with that and you pull your peers into your little focus here with your managers and everything, everybody can be successful. But I'm telling you, like Alonzo says, you come across as a suck up, you're going to find yourself on an island very quickly. Mm-hmm. And managers and leaders will see that.
Yes.
Good leaders and good managers. There are some managers and leaders, as we all know, want to be told how great they are and how wonderful they are and that type of stuff. But, the good ones, they want people that are going to work and produce, and you will separate yourself and impress your managers by your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you threw that in there. So sucking up, trying to figure out if there's a nicer way to say this.
But that was the nice way.
I'm trying to. I've realized now, after 36 years and 50 weeks, that there's not really a nice way to say it. I guess that means it's not a nice thing. So
if you're looking for politically correct, then maybe I need to leave,
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just looking to I just realized there's no nice sounding way to say it. So inherently it's not a good thing to do.
Right.
But I'm glad that you said that about managers seeing it. Managers will see through, and again, like you said, good managers will see through impressive employees versus sucking up employees. They will see it immediately, right away, for what it is. Impressive employees don't suck up.
No.
So, and I was about to say there's a fine line, but there's not really a fine line. There's a clear distinction.
Yeah.
Between the two. And so, but I'm glad that you said that about good managers and good leaders will see that and recognize it for what it is. And unfortunately for the individual that may be partaking in that practice, that leader and that manager is probably going to be doing the same thing that the peers do. They will segregate you into specific tasks and specific responsibilities and specific projects.
Yeah.
They don't want the good managers and the good leaders. They don't want the brown noser or the suck up coming into the meetings with them where it's going to represent how the manager looks, because that does not put forth a good representation of the manager. Whereas they're going to bring the impressive, strong team member into these situations instead of the suck up or the brown noser. So if you're trying to impress leadership or management by sucking up in a way that qualifies with what we're talking about, you're going to be doing the exact opposite of what you desire. Your results are going to be completely opposite of what you expect.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good place. I think that's definitely a good place to start the conversation. So, Alonzo, since you brought it up, what's the difference between sucking up and impressing?
Now this is important for everyone to understand. Like, say for instance, a suck up, they'll do everything at the expense of everyone else. Okay, you're trying to shine. I did this. I, me. I can do this. The difference is that someone who's trying to impress, they're going to be talking about from a perspective of a perspective of how we're able to leverage this, how we can bring everyone on board, how we can help everyone achieve as a cohesive unit. They're going to be able to see that leadership because you help the team through your own recognizance, your own initiative to bring everyone else further along. You're going to garner that reputation as being a leader. You're going to create business relationships, networks. People are going to see how you're able to get things done collectively as a unit and as someone who understands the value of how everyone can come together and bring their own value for everyone else to win. There is no person who can stand above anyone else. And then on top of that, when you create that great group, you make your team leader, your manager, your director, your silo or your pillar, wherever you're working, you make everyone look good as opposed to the suck up. I'm trying to shine even at the cost of my team as well as my manager and everything else in between.
I'll tell you just to piggyback off of that, it will take a good manager a very short amount of time to identify a suck up. The suck up's not going to have the ability to do what needs to be done. They're not going to have the communication skills, the teamwork skills. They're going to be focused only on themselves, but most of the time they are not going to be performing. Their performance is going to be lackluster. They're going to depend on their so-called personality and getting along with the boss to get them, to make sure that everything goes well for them. Yeah. It's not going to last, folks, because I'm going to tell you this, in the real world, most of us know this. Once you're identified as a suck up and you're not producing, that's what I always focus on. You must produce. Show me your worth. Alonzo used the word value. You've got to show your bosses and your superiors your value. And once they see that, they will give you opportunities to grow and expand within the organization. If you don't show the value to your bosses and leaders and so forth, they will probably give an attempt to improve your behavior, but eventually they're going to give you the opportunity to take your skills and your abilities and your experiences and use them somewhere else, i.e., they're going to kick your butt out the door, and they need to. Again, I go back to the point that if all the other people are seeing that you're getting all this attention, they're going to hold it against you. There will be grudges. There will be jealousy, and it will be like a cancer eating into that organization, eating into that group. An individual, you cannot be an individual and do very well in your career. You're going to have to be a member of a group, a member of a team, because one person can't do it. Okay. That's why a lot of times that I focus. I got colleagues that don't agree with what I do sometimes. When I give exams, open book, open note, open neighbor, I don't care who you use to help you, because in the real world, what do we got to do? Work with others. You might as well learn it at the university level rather than take an individual test. You're going to ask for help. So, that suck up part is going to become very evident. You're not going to be successful, and people are not going to respect you. So you got value, respect, and integrity out the window.
Yeah, you think about Dr. Johnson and Chris, your overall brand. And we talk about this a lot in our soft skills class, or whether I had the opportunity to speak with the students. When you're labeled a suck up, that's impossible to shake. The only way for you to let that brand, that tag go, is to go work somewhere else. Even in the same company, it will follow you, or it will it'll follow you, and you're not going to be able to let that go. So within your first few months of being a someone who starts the job, you have to be reputable. You have to be someone they can trust, someone that they respect, and you respect them in turn. And that's how it's built up. But once you get in there and you feel like, I'm going to really make myself shine, I'm going to show them who I am, you're going to show them, and it's not going to be in the way you think. So, Chris, what do you have for that?
Well, I mean, so I'm trying to think about this and I'm trying to think about this under the topic of the show: impressing management versus impressing your peers. Yeah. So, and something, and what kept coming to mind while listening to you guys is that it sounds like, and this isn't the right way to say it, not impressing your peers, but working well with your peers will impress management.
Yeah, and your peers. Yeah, it will. It is so true.
And that's something that a lot of people miss. They even if they're not trying to impress anyone, if they're not working to nurture their relationships with their peers in a healthy way, I'm not saying go out there and spend your time, effort, and energy to impress them to reach higher levels of your career. No, your peers aren't the place for that. But I've seen so many people in my career that don't nurture their relationships with their colleagues, and it almost creates the exact same effect as getting that brand of the suck up. If you're not nurturing, you're not putting in effort to build relationships and work with your colleagues and and I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to go to my hotel experience, just at the front desk, doing things on your shift that will help the next shift. I've seen people that are just going to do just what they got to do for their shift. Boom, that's it, nothing. And not do anything to help the following shift, or someone that may be working a shift alongside them. They're in their silo, just working with themselves, working on their own.
Yeah,
that's not going to help you long term. So again, it's not impressing your peers, but it's just working with your peers, working with your colleagues, nurturing relationships, doing things that help them, that benefit them, that can lead to their growth, and not just your growth. Not thinking that it's just a one man or a one woman show where it's all about you and all about what you do and all about the results of what you do. It's very intertangled. I think Dr. Johnson was the one that said it, is you're not going to do anything alone.
No.
Even if you're starting up your own company, you're not doing it on your own. That's just not how it works. So that's kind of what I was thinking while you guys were talking, was that building those relationships and nurturing those relationships with your coworkers will inherently impress your managers by the results of that labor that you put into that. Interesting. So I want to get your perspectives on have you ever seen people or experienced people that are focused on impressing the wrong people? And what has that looked like? Or have you been the one to try and do that? But because that's again the topic of the conversation is basically impressing the right people and putting your time, effort, and energy into impressing the right people. So do you have anything? Either of you have any experience to share on that? Any anecdotes of because I can only imagine some of the stories that some people might have of seeing people spin their wheels by trying to put all their effort and energy in the wrong place.
I may be going on an off topic here, but I'm in another different direction and everything. But
hey, that wouldn't be you if you didn't.
Yeah, well, I think something that's very important that we need to keep in mind is, we're talking about impressing our leaders or impressing our peers and so forth. But I really think the leader has a tremendous obligation in this process. A leader needs to be able to guide their group, their subordinates, if you want to call them that, their worker bees, whatever you want to call them. He or she needs to be able to guide these folks. And when this suck up comes out and everybody sees it, I think the leader has a responsibility to tap that down. The leader needs to address that. If the other worker bees does not see the leader taking a stand against this type of behavior, then it's going to be assumed or perceived as being acceptable behavior.
Yeah.
And then you may run the risk of other people trying to follow into that vein there, to go down that path of becoming a suck-ups. And if you don't watch out, you're going to have 4 or 5 of them in there. And then what's going to happen to your productivity? So yes, I understand the importance of you as a subordinate trying to impress your leader, but I think the leader's got a big role in this. I think they have a lot of responsibility to address it. Okay. Yeah. And I think they need to address it quickly, because to me, this is just like any other unacceptable behavior. It needs to be addressed. Okay. They need to, because I fully believe when you hire somebody, within 30, 60 days, you're going to see their true colors.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why I always recommend, strongly suggest that you have a 90-day probationary period where you can get rid of somebody for no reason. Don't have to worry about it not working out, because you're going to see their true colors. And that suck up is going to come out quick, probably a lot faster than the ones that are actually going to work. Well, the ones that are working hard and working well and everything, they're going to be overshadowed by that suck up. Mm-hmm. But eventually, that suck up's got to be recognized and it got to be dealt with. So, yes, the subordinates have a role here, but you got to have strong leaders to step in and tap this down and show your people, hey, I'm not going to accept this. We're here to work. If you produce, you impress. You don't produce, you don't get along well with other people, then I really don't need you in my group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of harsh,
I like that.
But I'll leave it at that.
That makes a lot of sense, because one of the things that Dr. Johnson said is that you got to nip it in the bud, because one of the things is that Mike says a lot about is that when there is a problem in the group, the top performers will leave because they know they have options. And then you're left.
By all means.
Yeah.
By all means.
Yeah.
Your good performers are the ones that will leave. Your weak ones will stay because they can't go anywhere else.
Yep.
And I'm serious. They will drag you down. Your good people will leave.
Yeah.
You have got to, it's a necessity to have a reputation of hiring good, hardworking people that are going to perform. Now, if you're going to hire these people as a leader, you got to reward these people.
Yep.
Or you're going to lose them.
Yep.
Okay. So, the good ones are going to go, the weak ones are going to stay, because, they'll do just enough not to get fired. Yep. While you're watching your great people walk right out the door.
Walk right out. And then one of the things that I've seen, Dr. Johnson, is that some leaders tend to reward their top performers with additional work to take up the slack for the people, which again creates a lot of disparagement. People are walking out the door. Then you're stuck with a lag. The work isn't being done. Your top performers have left. You're left with people who don't know how to do the job, or they do it wrong. And ultimately, it just puts the wrong eyes on your department to the point that, worst case scenario, I've seen the entire department get wiped out.
Yeah, but you think about this, when the leader says, "Oh, this is my star player over here, I'm going to give them more and more to do." Well, okay, if you give me more to do, what must you also give me? Money. You better reward me for doing it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, when performance appraisals come out, but your star performers doing wonderful, doing 10, 15% more, and they get the same raise.
Yep.
Where does that send you?
Yes. Yeah.
Out the door. I mean,
Yeah.
that leader needs to go, because that's not a leader. That's not even a manager. That's a boss at best.
Yeah.
Toss them.
So
I guess we got off topic. Sorry about that.
I was going to say our conversation is taking a turn here into leaders appropriately recognizing impressive talent.
Yes.
So I'm going to keep pulling this thread here, Dr. Johnson. So you've been
I've had my shots. I'll bite.
Yeah,
Cooper Johnson for president. Toss the boss.
Oh boy, yeah.
So
win for Greg B.
Yeah, that's from Greg B.
If I get in politics, I'm getting a divorce, I'm sure. She'll leave me tomorrow.
So you've been in a position of leadership, and you've had to recognize are not impressive or unimpressive people. What would you say from your experience are the things that stand out for an impressive person?
Impressive person?
Mm-hmm. Like truly impressive, like someone that's truly impressive, truly not a suck up, not somebody that's in it all just for their vanity, but a truly impressive person.
I can answer that very quickly from being a chair of a department, and I'll use the most recent here at University of Tennessee Martin before I got smart and got out of there. But we have what is known as a P&A. That's basically what we call our annual performance review. It is a rubric. Everybody has it. They know what they have to do to get certain scores. Okay. So the ones that really impress me are the ones that not only meet the minimum, but go above and beyond in 3 areas. We have 3 areas: service, scholarship, teaching. Teaching is the most important one. However, scholarship is given a lot of weight because of accreditation. All right. So the ones that impress me the most are the ones that come to me and, they've done, if I'm requiring, say, 1 journal article, they come in with 2 or 3 in a year. Presentations, teaching scores, that type of stuff. And I'll tell you what, I'll reward them. Now, I can't give them a raise, but what I can do, okay, you want to go to 2 conferences, you go to 2 conferences. Mm-hmm. The only way you get to go to a conference is if you're actually presenting a paper. If you're not presenting a paper, you don't get to go. That's going to go to somebody else that is producing. If you don't produce so many publications in a certain amount of time, what happens is, instead of getting to teach 3 classes per semester, all of a sudden you got to teach 4 now. And that impacts promotion, tenure, and that type of stuff. So when I became chair, I sat down and I said, here's my expectations. You can meet the minimum, and this is what's going to happen to you. You can exceed, and this is what's going to happen. If you don't meet the minimum, you're on tenure track. You don't get tenure in 5 years, you're out the door. You get a terminal contract. So I made sure to support the ones that were doing the work, the ones that worked the hardest, but the most productive. I did my best to encourage the others. I would give them mentors to work with. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So always, always, always reward your highest performers.
Yes.
Okay. you may not be able to give them raises, but you could give them other things. There are other ways to recognize people. Okay. I have my high performers, for example, will come to me and they'll say, "Hey, Dr. Johnson, there's a conference that deals with, I don't know, becoming a chair, whatever it is. Do you think, you could support that?" Well, you know what I do? I'll look and see what they've done over the last 3 years. Publications, teaching scores, that type of stuff. And if they're hitting that mark or higher, yes, sir, I'll support it. I'll take that money from the person that's not doing anything, and we move on to give it to the ones that are good.
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking for, Chris?
I have no clue. I can't hear or see anything. My computer is all messed up. So sounded good for the little bits that I heard. I had to restart.
Well, we can hear you.
Yeah,
we can hear you pretty good.
I can hear and see you guys great now, but I didn't get to hear any of your gems that you were dropping. So I'll let you ask Alonzo how that sounded.
Well, how'd that sound?
No, it was crystal. It was crystal. I think I couldn't agree more. There are different ways to reward your high performance other than the monetary gain. Providing those opportunities like scholastically, what you've offered with the 2 conferences, as opposed to the hard work that they're not performing. And you got to compensate it with double the work. So if you're not performing, if you're not exemplifying, then you're going to get the short end of the stick because you're short-ending everyone else. So on the opposite side of that, a lot of people that I've seen, like case in point, there are certain management consulting firms that I know of where the performers, they're in a specific project and they weren't necessarily given a raise, but however, they were given some sort of burst, if you will. They'll give them like, "Thank you so much for the effort you put in this project. Here's $500. Stuff like that. It's like there's always a way to showcase how much that company means to their employees, and they'll reciprocate by performing even better, even harder, maybe even bringing in people of the same caliber to help fortify the organization as well. So ensuring that you, as the manager, as the leader, can not only be impressed by your staff, but also impress them as well. Because I strongly believe attitude reflects leadership.
Yes. And we got to make sure that people understand the difference between being a leader and being a manager. When I teach my classes, regardless of whatever level I'm at, I'm teaching you to be a leader. I don't care about you being a manager. Manager can all the manager does is just hand out what the leader says to do. So you need to be a leader.
Yeah, it's like versus I have to do it versus I want to do it.
And keep in mind this too. You don't have to be a formal leader. You can be a leader among your peers. People will the ones that look up to you. You can be a leader, and then you will be impressing your actual leader, your manager of your department, and they will see hopefully your leadership skills when you do things like that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, and you know what the funny thing is, Dr. Johnson, is that even if you do all the things correctly, even if you're not a suck up, even if you're providing that you're that stepping stone for everyone to succeed, there's always someone who's going to resent you for your performance.
Sure.
And having to discuss that, I think we need to provide scenarios and solutions on how to mitigate those people who, no matter what you do, they're going to be miserable people.
Exactly. They're only happy when they're mad.
All right. So, I know we could keep going down this rabbit hole, but I got a surprise for everybody.
What you got?
I got something back here behind curtain number 2. Let's see what we got behind curtain number 2. Let me go here.
I think I may know who this gentleman is. Mr. Al Legister.
Gentlemen. Chris, we got to do something about that music.
What? Hey.
Somebody hasn't told you yet, but good to see you guys.
All right. So how's it going?
Oh man, it's going fantastic. Everything's coming along. A lot to learn. Anytime you move into a new organization, you try and learn the business first, and then learning the business, then you try to figure out your best way to bring value to the organization. So I'm at that little crossroads right now where it's time to start adding the value. I've learned more than enough about the organization's structure and how we do business, but it's time for me to get going and start proving my worth.
All
So to
right.
speak.
Got Kimmy here saying, "What a surprise!" Go Al. All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
how you guys doing? I hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday. So
Yes.
I'm listening to the conversation, and I'm enjoying what I'm hearing, and a lot of gems as usual. So I know you brought me on for a few minutes, so
Yeah.
just let me know what you need.
Well, I mean, you've got an extensive career that I'm sure has involved impressing the right people at the right place at the right time in the right way. So I figured you might have some insights about the topic. So I thought, hey, let's see what Al's got to say. Al himself is known for dropping gems. So,
Thank you, Chris.
so,
My opinion on impressing the right people is that you have to start, number one, by being authentic, right? And being authentic to yourself. Now, I speak to a lot of people who really don't know who they are yet. They know who they are, but they don't know how to present that authentic self to the world. So my first piece of advice is try to find out who you are. And then once you learn who that person is, stand in that power. Don't deviate from it. Now, if you need some correction in your character, then you need to work on that. If you need some correction on how you deal with people, you need to work on that. But at the end of the day, if you know who you are and all your skills, your traits, your values, your integrity is in the right place, you won't have a hard time impressing leadership. Just be yourself. And leadership appreciates that. I know you guys were talking about suck ups. Leaders know, right? Because you think you're the only one to suck up to a leader. They probably had to do that a lot. So the best way to impress a leader, in my opinion, is just be yourself, do your job well, and you will get noticed. It's without a doubt you'll get noticed. And it's probably around the time you least expect it that you get the tap on your shoulder. Coming to my office, I got something I want to put you on. Yeah. And that's when your your real leadership journey begins, right? And every leader who's been a contributor, who is then a leader placed in a leadership position can tell you the same thing. It was that one leader that says, you know what, he can do or she can do the job. I'm going to give them a little bit more. And if you can handle it, you're golden. You'll start being a leader from that day forward. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, I think that they'll not only do they see you as a leader, Al, they'll start treating you as a leader.
The conversations are different.
Yeah,
right?
They are. They're way different.
They're way different.
They'll treat you as a peer instead of as a subordinate, even if your brackets are not exactly the same, but knowing that you add that value, especially in the organization and the other industries that you work in, they recognize that and they're quick to provide a pipeline for you to even go further.
Oh yeah. And it's your network too, right?
Yeah.
You have to make sure that you're squeaky clean, right? So the little things, if you show up to work on time, right? You
Hey,
show up to
you're reading my list, man. I got that saved for later.
No, this stuff is this is simple stuff, but sometimes people got to say it, right?
Yeah, well,
You,
yeah.
you have to hear it said to you, like show up to work on time, right? Don't take an hour and a half lunch, right? Do your assignments when they're done, right? If you have to work a little bit late, then do that, and don't expect a tap on the back, right? Don't expect the congratulations you worked late. After a while, people start to notice that, and the person that will see it is the boss.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to start looking at metrics. He's going to start looking at who's around, who's producing. And then he's going to know that, you know, if I don't move him into something else or her into something else, you know, I'm not using that guy or that gal to the best of their ability.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah. Good show, Al.
Yeah, I like that. It reminds me of I think it was Monday. Yesterday, Jesus, it's been a long week. Yesterday, Alonso and I on our YouTube Q&A, we had someone ask. I don't remember exactly what the wording was, but I think it actually was how do you make an impression in your first 90 days or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And I answer it and I'm like, all right, so everything I'm about to say sounds like common sense, but it's the things that people forget about.
Yeah.
Show up on time.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah.
Dress appropriately.
Right.
Be quiet and listen.
Yeah.
Don't try and solve a problem. You know, you're new. Maybe it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe what you think is, you know, just kind of be observant. Listen. So I like your approach to the common sense there. You know.
I had a
And starting, but going all the way back to starting with be you. Don't try and be something that you're not.
right.
I like
Right.
that.
And I think it's important for you to be consistent.
Mhm.
Don't provide any surprises to your manager.
Mhm.
Create a level of expectation, a level of excellence, a level of standard where they know that you can perform consistently, because I've seen a few times, quite often, rather, where everyone, they'll redline, they'll throttle their performance, and then it starts tapering off to substandards. And then they're saying, okay, well, you're not the person we thought you were. That creates a negative brand tag on you.
Ooh, that's a deep one.
Yeah, so it's like, make sure that what you're trying to impress with is your standard and not something that you can't maintain on a regular basis, because they'll know, they'll see it, and you'll get dinged for it.
And it typically starts off like this. You're excited, you get the job, right?
Yeah.
You're going to work the first week, you're on time, you're showing up every day. Maybe week 2, you're settling in. It's by like three or 4. This is why, you know, Dr. Johnson talks about the probationary period, right? But between week 3 and 4, you're going to start to see if you're really cut out for it, right? That 30-day, once you hit that 30 days, I had an old boss that used to say, and it probably wasn't the best thing to say, but I got what he was dropping. He was like, if after 90 days, you know, you don't come up with some solutions, you're part of the problem now.
Yeah.
Now, he told me that 20 years ago.
Still
and it never left me, right? So you got to be conscious of it, right? After your 30 days, that's when you're just getting going. The honeymoon's over, right? Day 31 to day 60, now you're starting to get a little bit deeper. You're starting to figure out where the buyers are in the company.
Yeah.
You're starting to figure out where your impact's going to be, right? And then from day 61 to day 90, now you're demonstrating that value. Okay. So the 30, 60, 90-day plan, you can go online, you can research this stuff. There's a science behind it, right? First 30 days, you're getting used to the company, you're collecting information. The next 30 days, I'm going to figure out what to do with this information.
Yeah.
In the last 30 days, I'm going to start using this information.
Yeah, well said. Definitely. And how you're able to be executable and be able to leverage that not only for the benefit of the company, but it's always about your manager. No matter what you do, that edge and of that sword is it's going to point towards you or point towards your manager. So make sure
You make them
that
look good.
everything exactly you have to, and that's where the politics comes in. Is another thing that people should not do about impressing. Do not be a yes man. Don't agree to everything. Don't, yes, 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 yes. I think that's a great idea when you know it's not. I think this is going to really be helpful when you know it won't. Be able to respectfully provide solutions for your manager without challenging them in their authority directly. Be able to support uh, their endeavors, but leverage what you know to a point where they're able to say, you know what, I never thought about that. Show me a proof for that. Show me some
Example.
numbers for that and examples. And I said, okay, here's the examples. This is how we can execute it for the director of the pillar, director of the silo, or whatever. Believe me, they will reward you. And if you have those weak leaders that don't, go someplace else, because and you know this, Al, is that if they don't appreciate you where you are, other people in other departments will scalp you and they will try to pull you over into that department.
There's nothing worse than being led by a poor leader. Because people don't usually leave companies. They leave bad leadership.
Yes.
Hands down. Right? I don't care what you do. If you leave a
Lonzo, I'm gonna
company, you leave
piggyback.
with bad leadership. Yes, Dr. Don Johnson.
I was just going to piggyback off of what Alonzo said. One of the things that I encourage my folks to do, and the ones that really impressed me, were the ones, you always have those people that will come into your office and tell you how great things are going. We're doing good here. We're doing great. We're doing great. You know what? I can read a report. I know when things are going great. What I need from my people, and the ones that I really respected, when they would step up and they would come into my office and they say, hey, Doc, we got a problem coming up. There's an issue that's developing. We need to address this. I always encourage my people, let me know when a problem's coming up so that we can address it. Even if you are the problem, if you cause the problem, I'm going to respect you a lot more if you bring it to me. We'll work through it. Then we can use it as a teachable moment another time. We can sit down and discuss what went wrong and all that. Don't be the type of leader that just yells and screams because there's a problem. You need to encourage your people to let you know when those are coming up so that you can address them. Again, I can read a report. I know when things are wonderful. But when I got a major customer that may not be happy with what's going on and I'm about to lose them, I sure would like for somebody to come in and tell me this so that I can address it. There was an old commercial one time. I can't remember what it was. It was the guy that came in and he said, we got to fix things. And he started handing out airline tickets. He said, you need to go fix this. Go meet with them one-on-one. And they'd say, well, what are you going to do? And he pulled out his ticket and he says, I got one I got to go deal with too. So you deal with those problems. You encourage the people. And the ones that would come to me and still that come to me with those issues, I respect them a whole lot more than the ones that just come in and say, oh, we're doing wonderful. Everything's great. Rainbows and unicorns, because I know it's not. We're not going to grow. We're going to have bumps in the road. And you've got to, rather than punish those people, reward those people, because they just contributed, rather than me listening to somebody sit there for 15 minutes tell me how great he is or how great I am.
Yeah.
I need people that's going to be upfront with me.
I want to interject here as well, and mainly I'm just going to interject about us and our company. Chow, Leo, Eddie, Tyrone, Collins, all of y'all, they have no problem coming to me and saying, hey, here's something we got to fix, or here's something that we need to do. And I appreciate it. And to a further extent, and I hope that I wish there was more people watching. To a further extent, people in the program doing the same thing. Al is one of them. That will be like, hey, here's something that we can fix. Here's something that there's a better opportunity, or here's something to think about, or here's even if hey, you got the wrong answer on the quiz. And I look at it and I'm like, dadgum, that is the wrong answer. But
Mhm.
people pointing it out, because at the end of the day, it shows that they care about the quality of what's being put forth.
And you know, the funny thing about that too, Chris, is that leaders appreciate honesty and transparency,
Yes.
right? I can't run my business if I don't know what's going on, right?
Yep.
And the person that brings them out, don't be a complainer, right?
Right.
There's a difference between telling the boss that, hey, this is something that we need to look at, versus complaining and criticizing the business from top down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'll
that's
definitely
dangerous
speak
one
on
right
that.
there.
Yeah, you think about, like, say for instance, Al, you're sharing problems. Be careful how you share problems and in front of whom.
Yes, sir.
Talk and communicate with your manager and say, I noticed something. But you know what? One thing that's also good about acknowledging and finding problems so that you can have them remediated. But possibly, if you have an opportunity, I have a problem. I see a problem we have, but I also have a possible remediation for that.
Yep.
So if we're able to do that, not only did you understand the business, you see how it can be maximized, and you provide a solution for it to happen.
And it doesn't have to be a full-blown solution either.
Right.
It can just be the beginning of a solution. Hi, hey, here's a problem. I did some quick research and saw another organization had this. Just something like it, because it may take you a while to create a solution, and if it takes you too long to create a solution, that problem is going to fester. So
Yeah.
you don't have to have a full-blown solution. Just show some initiative towards resolving that problem.
Yes.
And again, it may not be a problem. It may not be an issue. So say it can, especially if you're newer in the organization, it's not a problem. It's something that you notice.
Mm,
Hey, I've realized this. I want to make sure that this is the way it's supposed to be. And maybe is there somewhere where I could learn more, blah, 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 so on and so forth.
Yeah. You don't want to go to the boss with nothing but problems without a
Right.
solution in your back pocket.
Yeah.
yeah.
At least it's a start of a solution,
Yep.
because that will tell the boss, you know what, he's looked at this issue.
Pick.
He's analyzed it, and he may come up with a few solutions, some good, maybe some not so good. But what it shows the boss is that you're deep, right, and you care.
Yeah.
And that's all they really want. Someone who cares about the business as much as they do.
Yeah. Show that you're not just here for a paycheck.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Don't do that. The money will come,
Oh, yeah,
especially in the field that we're in. The money
Yeah.
will come. Just do your best part to be an asset to whatever organization you land with. And
Al made a good point. One of the first things that he talked about is, be on time.
Mm,
Whether it's being on time that work starts at 9 o'clock, or being on time with a project or deadlines or whatever it is, be on time. My grandfather always told me, it took me a while to figure it out, because, I'm a male, I'm a little slow. He told me, he says, to be on time is to be late.
yep. I was going to say that.
If it's supposed to be done on like April 1, try to have it done a little bit early. If you're supposed to be at a meeting at 10 o'clock, get there a little early. Build that in. Because I'm tell you, as a leader, a lot of times when I would have meetings, what would aggravate me more than anything was somebody just walks in late.
Oh.
And I understand certain things happen. I do understand that. Life happens. But when you're the person that's consistently doing that,
habitual is what we call it.
something is wrong. And you can bet your rear end Dr. Johnson's going to address it. And it probably won't be nice, but it'll be in my office.
Yeah. Imagine you all there's clients on one side, your team on the other. Everyone's ready. Everyone's looking at the presentation, and you walk in.
Don't even walk in. Just stay outside.
Just
Please, stay out.
Stay outside. Come up with some sort of excuse as to why you're not there. But when you interrupt, you embarrass yourself, you embarrass your manager, you embarrass your team,
Yes.
and you embarrass the company.
Right. It doesn't matter what it looks like on you. It shows to the customer that this company doesn't have a team that's responsible.
Yeah, and if you're showing up late, then that means my business, you're going to show up with the remediation late. It's going to cost me money and everything else. I don't want to work with you. People don't understand how much is at stake and what that client is looking at they're looking at the very minutiae of what your company represents and how you're getting things done. And if you're not able to showcase that about how you're looking, your lapels, your suit, how you're presenting yourself, how clean you look and everything else. And we haven't even gotten to the tech and you presenting the business transformation opportunities. You haven't even gotten there yet. So it's important.
Yep.
Perception is everything.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, let's just from a simple.
There's long hair. See, perception is everything.
Long hair, no hair.
Well, you know what? I'm Medicare age. I can do it.
But for a simple, a simple hypothetical. Let's just, without getting into too many weeds, you're trying to make a decision between IBM and Dell. You're not really going to go wrong with the hardware.
Yeah.
They're both going to serve your needs. But which sales company are you going to go with? The one that shows up on time, the one that respects your time and your money, the one that values your input, the one that does all these things. So it's these, just going back to what Alonzo was talking about and Dr. Johnson were talking about. So these little things, and I've got my list over here of things that to impress management. And it's funny, I said that you guys were feeling off of my list, but one of the things on my list is consistently deliver expected results. It's not hard. It's expected. So again, if it's expected April 1st, have it in March 31st. One day. It's
my question always is when you're talking about the two computers, okay? Mm-hmm. So, my question, regardless who I'm going to talk to both people. The first thing I'm going to ask is, what can you do for me? Mm-hmm. How can you help me solve my problem? I understand the computer's going to work. If not, I'm going to turn it on and off 3 or 4 times, all you tech people. But I want somebody that's going to be.
You call us, as long as you do it before you call us.
But I want somebody that's going to be there, that is reliable, that can answer my questions, that is reachable, that I can get a hold of. I don't really care about the computer. I want that support. That's what I'm looking for. And you want to impress me as a leader, then you go out there and you take care of my customers. You give them what they need. You don't give them a computer. You give them my company. You give them my reputation, and you give them service, and and take care of them, because they will come back. And then, as Alonzo will tell you very quickly from marketing, word of mouth is the best advertisement and promotion. They will tell everybody about it. That will impress me.
Yeah.
And the adverse is just as true.
Yeah. Yes. You can tear you work so hard. Like, there is so much. You think about, case in point, you think about the word of mouth. Like, this is one example. Arizona iced tea. Do you wonder how they're able to keep their prices down? Have you ever seen a TV commercial with Arizona iced tea? It's all about their reputation. Period. Let's talk about Lamborghini. And this is one of the best things that I was taught about them. Lamborghini and Ferrari. You don't see it in their commercials. And they asked, well, why don't they make commercials? They had responded and they had said, our clientele isn't sitting on the sofa. So you think about that and how your marketing, how your reputation is, about word of mouth, about the quality of not only the services, but who represents them, how you're able to execute and communicate its value and everything else. And I tell the students, when I have an opportunity, not only are you showcasing the benefits, you're telling a story about how they're able to use this for an experience that's going to benefit their company, both internally and externally. You think about internally the change management initiatives that are executable that people are going to have to learn, and how you're going to be able to make that memorable, interesting, and then willing to take on something that they probably more than likely are going to have some resistance about. So it's all about that leadership. It's all about being able to not suck up, but be able to be a transformative leader and showcase things that help people and inspire them to go further and harder in their positions.
And I have a-
I get faculty, you know, when I was chair, I get emails from students or emails from people outside the university bragging about how good this professor was, how helpful they were, how understanding they were. And you can't pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's with any organization. You know, the people that your people represent you. Not, I always say, you might think you represent the company, but first of all, you represent yourself. Second thing, you represent me, and then we can get to the company. You take care of those three, then you're going to be good. And that's what another thing that impresses me. It gets my attention. You know, happy customers, money in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the more prestigious the organization, the more responsibility you have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, you get a job with Microsoft. Microsoft's going to expect a certain caliber of professionalism from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same thing with AWS. Any of these big companies, these big banks that a lot of our students get hired through. That matters, right?
Yeah.
You get a part of a big company, you're going to want to make sure that your credibility, your integrity stays constant from day one.
Yeah.
Don't deviate from it.
Well, look what GoCloud puts out there from this is my perception again. GoCloud puts people out there that has the technical skills to do what needs to be done.
Come on, man.
But then GoCloud also recognizes the importance of the soft skills. Too many times you get people that don't have those soft skills, and they can't be as successful. They can do the tech stuff. They can do the stuff that I can't do. I can barely turn the blasted thing on. Okay.
Yeah.
But with that, when you put those soft skills in there, when you can communicate with people, talk to them about their problems, how we can help you, those types of things, you know, customers, from my standpoint, I don't really need to know how cloud architect works. I don't need to know how to do that. What I need to know is, did it help my company?
Yeah.
You know, can you answer my question in simple, everyday terms? I've talked to people I can't understand. You know, I got a PhD, and they come in and start talking all this stuff, and I said, can you dumb it down just a little bit? And what they can't, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm going somewhere else. I'm going somewhere else.
Escorted
They
off the
can give
road.
me the same thing, but help me understand, and you know, just communicate.
Yeah. If we say I can help you versus pseudo yum, and you start throwing in all this Linux and crap, I'm like, I don't want to talk to you because, and that's one of the things, and I know this is off the beaten path, but that's the thing about, say, for instance, cloud engineers. They're focused on command line. They talk to the computer in the language it understands to get things accomplished. Cloud architects talk to people in a language that is understandable, easily executable to facilitate the same thing. Same initiative, but different communication styles. And that's what's important, and that's what a leader needs to do.
All right. I'm wrangling you guys back in.
Okay, go ahead.
So, you know, while everybody else was talking, I started to think about something, and you know, it's been several years since I heard this, but it's so true. So, my wife and I used to work in the same company in the hotel industry, and I didn't ask this question, but somebody asked the vice president, or not the vice president, the regional director who would do the visits regularly and come around and see us. Somebody asked him, "Why are you always calling Alex on her cell phone? Why don't you just go into her office when you're at the property?" It's like, because I can't find her in the office. She's out there. She's out doing her job.
Don't need to be in the office.
She's not in the office. So it's just, I'm trying to remember now what y'all were saying that made me think about that. But I think it's just a combination of everything that we've talked about. Is like, solving problems, doing what's expected. Like in the hotel industry, GMs shouldn't be in the office. Like they have an office. I never understood why we have an office, but we've got an office. But GMs aren't in the office. They're out there doing the thing. They're out there. Oh, it was when you said talking about the commercial about the guy saying, "We're going. Here's your airplane ticket. Go solve this. Here's your airplane ticket. Go solve this. Here's my airplane ticket. I'm going to solve this one." So same thing. Be out there. Being proactive. Exceeding the expectations, not just meeting the expectations, but being out there and doing the work. And it got me thinking about the impressing the peers thing. So a lot of the time we see people that are worried about impressing their peers, almost kind of like teenage cliques, kind of. And so that's, I want to go back to that for a second about if that's where you're putting your time, effort, and energy, your manager's going to notice that. Your leader's going to notice that you're doing the 1.5-hour lunch with 3 other guys from the office that are low performers.
Yeah.
They're going to notice that they got this project done, but they didn't volunteer or say they wanted to take on anything else ever over the course of the past 18 months. Never have they stepped up. They just take what I give them and just do the work. They're going to notice these things. So that's because you're doing that 1.5-hour lunch, or you're on the office chat application with the Slack and BSing with people in in not doing the work, and instead of actually working for 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day, you're working for 3 hours a day, and managers are going to notice that, because that falls into the impressing the peers category.
Yeah,
that's where you go from you go beyond that threshold of building relationships and being cordial and developing camaraderie with your team. You go beyond that and into the unknown, if you want. It's something that I've started to see a lot more in the past 3 years now, almost. Now, since half the stuff has gone remote, you've got some people that are extremely productive and effective, almost to their own detriment, because they do not stop. And some of you, if you've been around long enough, you've heard me talk about this. And I've contributed to an article where I said this is a problem of the remote workplace, is you have some people that will not stop. But then the majority of the people are taking the advantage of it and slacking and loafing and not contributing, and it's becoming less productive. But so finding the happy medium in there of being productive and building that teamwork and contributing and being friendly with your colleagues and everything, while still being productive but not driving yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
Because those people out there that are working 16 hours a day remotely because they let themselves do it, your manager doesn't notice it.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Chris. What do you think? I love what you just said, and it brings up a thought in my head. How much of that do you think it's people just haven't reached a certain level of professional maturity? Right?
Oh, definitely. You're talking about the spending an 1.5-hour lunch and BSing on the
Slack. Because 21-year-old Al, it doesn't look like 40-something-year-old Al, right?
No.
You have to learn some of these skills or these beliefs, right?
And that's why we're here. You've got to have 21-year-old Al has to have somebody that says, boom, boom, boom. Al,
Hmm.
don't do that hour and a half lunch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, there a part of it is the professional maturity, and it doesn't have to be 21-year-old Al. It could be 32-year-old Al or 37-year-old Al
Right.
who's had the first opportunity at a big boy job, or
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
so
That's
yeah, it's definitely that familiarity with the battlefield or the game board, so to speak. And again, that's that's what we're trying to do here. Is just, I wish I could scream out to everybody, "Hey, don't
Yeah.
take that hour and a half lunch," and millions of people would hear it. Like,
Yeah.
that would be
There's simplicity, there's genius in simplicity and consistency.
yeah,
And also, one of the things that I think that we need to discuss is how to play the politics in between becoming that leader and towing the line of doing what you need to do to be effective. And this may be controversial to say, but you don't want to shine rather than be the performer, perform well, but also be the gray man. And if you
yeah,
don't know what the gray man is someone who is still able to blend into the crowd of being a contributor, being a team player without outshining everyone else. This is one of the a military concept that I'm familiar with, and you have to be able to play those politics so that you don't outshine your manager, you don't outshine your teammates. You have to learn how to speak the talk the walk, be able to move in a certain kind of way so that you are learning, but you're also adapting to the culture and how they're getting things done
It's very important.
without being disruptive, but you're also adding value. It's a tightrope.
it is.
It's I would I it's hard to it's a combination between a science and an art. And it all depends on what that culture is and finding the right mentor, finding the right network to help you successfully navigate, especially over those first 90 days and outside of that. It's always a learning process.
Yeah,
You hit a good point there because a good leader, in my opinion, or should develop a policy that identifies good mentors for the new people that are coming on board.
Very important too.
And that could be, when you hear mentor, a lot of times you hear old person, not necessarily. Some of the old people that I know are some of the worst employees. You need to identify good mentors that can, but and I know this is probably not the best way to put this, but you sit down and so let me tell you how it's really done around here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can have all the wonderful company rules, regulation, policy, procedures, and culture and all that stuff. But, mentors can show this is how it's really done. Let me show you how to approach different things, different people, who you need to reach out to for certain things and help. I always say one of the most important people in any organization is the secretary. They control the boss, believe it or not, gatekeepers. So if you can have a policy of identifying good mentors and assigning new people to them to help learn this thing, and think of all the problems, many of the problems that you can avoid, that those new kids on the block won't make those mistakes, or they won't make as many, or they won't be as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But but the difficult thing is identifying the good mentor.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the most. It doesn't have to be the most educated.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the oldest or the young. It's got to be the person that can help individuals develop relationships, communicate with them, take them under their wing, and guide. That's what you're looking for. So I think leaders or companies should have a system set up like that. Even in the university, we have those.
Yeah. And Al, this ties into what you said earlier. The secretary or that mentor knows where the bodies are. And also able to successfully navigate that minefield to make sure you don't do faux pas in front of the wrong people. Because let's face it, some of those folks in leadership, they are unforgiving. And they remember, they hold grudges, and they do not let you go past them because of what you may have done accidentally or whatever. So it's so important.
I had a secretary here that she's been here 35 years. When I became chair, I would say, well, I got to do this. And she'd say, this is who you need to call. Or let me call that person. And you know what? You know who was never called? Another boss or another leader. They called the secretaries. And they would get things done for me and that type of stuff. Finally, I would just refer to her as, people go, who's the chair of the department? I'd point at her.
Yeah.
You know, why am I here? You know, that was it. But
Well,
she was wonderful. She mentored me. Think about this, folks. A secretary, no college degree, mentored me and taught me so much.
yeah.
That's
Well,
great.
we're using the title secretary, but it doesn't have to be a secretary. It's
No,
the
it doesn't have to be a
office-
secretary.
It's the office leader,
Assistant.
the person that knows the systems. They figured
Knows
it
the
out.
system.
They're
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know they're
It
the
doesn't
ones.
take a degree to know that either.
Yeah, and if we're talking about politics, it's the people that are running around in the halls of Congress. The senator's not running around. It's the people that work for the senator that are running around making things happen. It's those are the people that you have to identify.
It lets you, as the leader, then devote more time to doing the job that you need to do rather than trying to figure out all these little what I call piddling things.
All right.
You know,
All right.
it freed my time up.
Yeah. So, got another surprise here for everybody. I'm not sure how long Al's able to stay, but Al, you're more than welcome to stay as long as you want.
Yeah, I'll stay for a couple more minutes.
All right.
Trying to see
all
who you
right.
bring it in here.
Yeah, you got to see who I'm bringing in. All right, so let's see here. Let's see. Since I got warned on the music last time, we're just going to go with. Oh,
I'm out.
Marla!
You
Hi.
want the enterprise architect on? I'm gone. Hey, Marla.
Right. Hi guys, how you doing?
All right.
good. Thank you.
Awesome to see you, Marla.
Good,
Hi.
good. Glad to see you guys too.
Yes,
So I'm
definitely.
listening as much as I can and hearing all this great advice. And I love one thing that Dr. Johnson always says, that the leader isn't always the manager or the person with the title. Many people lead from within or within the team. And I have to say, as a person who's naturally introverted, that was kind of my way the first number of years in corporate. So, and the thing is, because I have always been professional, even when I was in my 20s, I always had a kind of a little bit of a distance between, I'm being friends, but I wanted to remain professional because, you know, people would say always, you know, dress for the job you want. Okay. So even though I'm like 21, I didn't want to dress like I was 21. I want to dress for whatever that next job was. So, but at the same time, I don't want to separate myself from my peers. So but because of that, Dr. Johnson and everyone, people would kind of recognize me. So they would maybe use me as an example or have me speak more. Or, but the way because I know you guys were talking about the suck up, I was not a suck up. I was just a person who wanted to do well. But if I ever did some sort of improvement, like made a form that made everything work well, like when I was in sales and this sort of thing, then I would share it with everybody. Just things like that. So I made sure to stay connected with my folks, but still made sure to kind of keep just a professional distance because, you know, especially when you're 20 something, you know, everybody goes out after work and the stories come back and I don't want to be a part of those stories. So, but, you know, I might've been there, but you never had my name and all the crazy stuff. But,
Let me ask you a question, Marla. Did you let them know who made that document?
yes. I mean, they knew, like I would,
Okay.
like, here's a weird thing. Like if they always say this about introverted personalities, and I didn't know this at the time, but what I realized is I have individual relationships with each person, as opposed to I'm not the one generally, or at least back then, standing there and holding court, but actually I had a close relationship with each person. So I would say, look, this is what I did. Like last time when I lost that sale or it didn't get delivered, I was like, I didn't like that, you know? So I made this form and I like, take it. I want you to take it. And then it would go from person to person to person. And so they knew it was mine, but I didn't necessarily go around and say, hey, everybody, you know what I mean? It was more of, let me help you out with something. And so that kept me connected, even though, like I say, in dress and that sort of thing, I was trying to be a little bit different than the pack, because back then, way back then, things were formal and there was no business casual. And then there was this transition. I was there during that time. And for me, I was like, I'm not going to the very casual stuff, not just yet. I mean, the same people are in charge. They're still going to really see things the same way. You know what I mean? And so it took me a long time before I could even put on like the jeans on Friday and then take off the blazer and then, you know, just like be a little bit different. But I always wanted to differentiate myself in a maybe a less obvious fashion. So as a matter of, you know, just going back to your point of what the name of the webinar was impressing your boss versus impressing your friends. I think that was kind of always my approach. Just doing
What
it.
What you did is exactly what impresses leaders.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
They saw the relationship that you have with your peers. You didn't stand out and brag and do all that kind of good stuff.
Okay.
You remain professional. They recognize that and that impressed them. So that will come back tenfold or 100-fold in your
Just
favor.
by doing
It
your job.
helped. It did help. It did help. If people would, they would just put me out front, even though I wasn't trying to be out front. So I would, you know, so I eventually just took it. You know what I mean? But
There you go.
ultimately, that's what would happen. So I guess even young, because I went to business school and I was just trying to make sure that I know I don't want to stay in this phone job, you know what I mean, or whatever it is. And I wanted to be recognized separately. So that's kind of what I did.
Yeah.
You earned it. That's what counts. You earned it.
Exactly. So like that's we were talking about this earlier about about part of like it's not impressing your peers, but it's working with your peers, helping your peers, making your peers successful like you, not doing things that are detrimental to your peers.
Right.
Like that type of stuff is what managers see that type of stuff. Leaders see that type of stuff. They may not see the specific action that you take, but they definitely see the results about it, and they'll definitely hear about it from somebody.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something that you're inherently just constantly doing, and it's just part of what you're doing. It becomes part of your brand, and you know how big we are about branding here,
Right?
So yeah, I like that you shared that. That was good. That's you know, because a lot of the times people are like, I got to either impress my peers or my peers are my direct competition. I can't do anything to help them. No,
Right.
no. There's the middle ground. Yeah. Help your peers. Help everybody be successful.
Right. Got to be secure in yourself.
Right. Yep.
And I think that's important because Marla, when you showcase you're introverted, you're able to help your team individually and collectively. So how were you able, as an introvert, be able to transition into getting put out in the front?
Yeah.
And how were you able to adapt to that environment?
Okay. Well, I'll explain this. So before I had the word introvert, that's just a natural way of my personality. So it doesn't mean that you're shy necessarily. So I think people combine those. So I'm not shy, and I don't know that I'm. Sometimes you're mistaken for being modest. Maybe I'm not that modest either. I mean, I'm secure and confident in what I can do. I just don't have to tell everybody about it because I'm cool, you know, with it. But in terms of being able to get out and speak, and you know, when I'm asked to. When I'm given a task, I'm going to complete it. So if it's a matter of doing that training with people or whoever the new people are, do the training in the class, I'm going to do it. I'm going to challenge myself to do it. And I shared this with Mike. Like, my mom was a teacher and my parents actually met on the stage. So I was going to be on the stage whether I liked it or not. and I was. So whether it is the first thing I want to do, it doesn't matter. I know how to get up there and do it. So in fact, I tell any other folks who have that kind of challenge that even though I'd rather be the backstage person, I will actually act like an owl when I go on stage, or I'm going to act like Mike. So I'll say, okay, what would Al do? I'll get up and turn on my owl, and then as soon as the curtain comes down, I'm back to being me, because you have to get through it. So you give me a task, though, I'm going to take the challenge. You ask me, I'm going to do it. So if it was a matter of dealing with this particular client, I had some difficult clients at one point. Sometimes you got to rip off the bandage. You got to tell them that thing they don't want to hear. Who else is going to do it? So it's what I have to do, and so I just don't shy. That might just be a personality trait, but when that's what they're paying you for, and you have to deliver this result, and maybe give somebody some news that they don't want to hear, you just have to buck up and do it. So, and after you've done it a few times, you realize it's not that bad. They're not that scary after all. They
Yeah.
make you a little scared. They're a little more scared of you than anything because you did it. But generally, when you stand up to the bully, they back down, and they were just pushing that limit to see how far they could go. So that's how I just had to do it. And I did it and realized that, the claws usually aren't that sharp.
I remember the first time I had to tell the owner or the financiers of a hotel that the hotel wasn't going to open on time.
Yeah.
That was a multi-million-dollar project. Bookings already on the table, contracts already signed for groups and conventions. And we're not going to open on time. And it's not just the owner you got to tell. You also have to tell the brand. You got to tell Hilton. You got to tell. It's like,
Yep.
That's when the power of a real introvert comes into play.
Yep.
Because the introvert the power lies in between smaller groups and smaller conversations. The introvert's power is one-on-one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, or one-on-two.
Right.
If you put the introvert in a big crowd, the introvert might, feel a little uncomfortable. But the true power of that introvert is working with small teams, right? And they're able to be more open and a little bit more transparent, right? To the folks that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So, with Mike not here, I have a more likely opportunity to meet my New Year's resolution of us sticking to our time frame for the show. So, with that in mind, I shared with Alonzo and Dr. Johnson before we started that I've got a list of a handful of things that I consider something that would contribute to impressing your management. I'd like to share these and just kind of round robin it and get people's feedback. Yes or no? No, it's not appropriate. Yes, it is appropriate. Why not? And then if you've got something to add into it, of course, just feel free to. And of course, I understand if you busy people aren't able to stick around, just let me know. We'll
hear your list.
mosey on. It's all right.
What's on this list? Yeah.
Say that again.
I said I want to hear what's on the list.
Okay. All right. So I already mentioned one of them earlier, so we'll start with that one. The consistently deliver expected results. That seems pretty straightforward, but in my opinion, if it's expected, it's a known value. You know what the deadline is. You know what the deliverable is supposed to be, and you have all your instructions. You have the entire game plan. It's expected. Consistently delivering these. I know it seems simple.
Yeah.
But if you do this enough, think about how many people aren't consistently delivering expected results. Now, this isn't saying a positive result or a negative result. This is just the expectation is met. What are your thoughts about that? Like I said, I start off simple. Start off very common sense here. But I'd love to hear what any of you have to add to that or alternative to that.
Well, consistency is great. Okay, so being a solid player is fantastic, but I was always trained to do more. So
I hadn't gotten to that one yet.
Okay.
That one's up there. That one's down there. Don't worry.
Yeah, so as long as you are consistent, that's great, but it's also plain and not very. It doesn't distinguish you. And this is the crazy thing. You may be one of the most professional people on that team, but you're just not noticeable. So I think consistency is great, but if you can, add in some excellence and maybe add in some doing kind of going the extra mile, then that's even better.
What does everyone think about the term under promise, over deliver?
Oh, absolutely. Live and die
Wait,
by
that's,
it.
that's exactly how you handle those people
Yes.
that you're scared of with the clause. Do not let them push your timelines. You build in the time for mistakes, for the thing not to be available when you order it, for someone to not be there or to be out sick. You have to build that in so that when you give them a time, it's a time that allows for life to happen.
Mhm.
And then if you can deliver earlier, then you're wonderful. That's fantastic. But never, never are you rewarded for doing that stuff every single time and
Nope.
now they ask me for it. Now I need to do it tomorrow and tomorrow. They don't respect you, don't respect your time, and they are never happy. And you
Never.
will
Could you say that again for everyone in the back?
please listen. You will be penalized for saying I'll do it tomorrow when you should have told them I'll do it in 5 days, or at least given them that timeline, and then you give it to them in 2 days. You tried to do everything you could to get it to them tomorrow, but you disrupted your whole schedule. It wasn't actually possible. Do not do that. Give yourself the time that you need, and then you can overperform if you can. You can actually deliver at that 5-day timeline on a regular basis, and then save those 3 days, those 2-day times for special occasions, and make them extra happy for some particular reason. But you have to manage it. I made the other mistake. That's why I know. So people will burn you out if you keep saying yes right now. You can't.
And the worst thing is they'll still continue to constrain it. Instead of you saying you can do it in 2 days, okay, can you do it tomorrow?
One
Can
day,
you do it in an hour? Can you do it? It's like
you
you
get
said,
the opposite
never gonna be
effect.
happy.
Yep, you get the
So
opposite of what you thought you were gonna get.
This is where it's important not to be a yes man.
That's right. You have to
Because
say no.
the combination of being a yes man or a yes woman and trying to exceed like what you think they want, it's just
You have to be in control.
It's just going to blow up. So anybody, Dr. Johnson or Al, any thoughts on the consistency of delivering results?
Well, I look at it from a leader. I always dreamed of people like that. Wish I had a lot of them. But I would get from professors would come into me all the time, and I would send something out, and you got 2 weeks to give me feedback. And to be honest with you, if you sat down and did it, it'd take you 20 minutes. But I know people are busy. 2 weeks. I would have them come into my office and say, can I have a little bit more time to do that? And I'd say, what do you tell your students when they don't meet a deadline?
Uh-oh.
So, no, you need to get it to me now. The demands of your job are not that much. They're not that difficult. We have high expectations. But you talk about getting noticed. Well, you're getting noticed now for the wrong things. Marla got noticed for the good things, doing that type of stuff. Now I'm having people who are consistently late, not getting things done. So, yeah, you just made an impression, but not the right impression. And that's going to be detrimental to your career down the road. Even though you don't stay with me, people are still going to call me. When you get ready to go, they're going to say, tell me about this person's work ethic, their attitude, their dependability, their reliability. And there's one thing Dr. Johnson's not going to do. He's not going to sugarcoat it. He's just going to say,
No, really?
No, he's not. So, I wish I had 100 Marlas, but I don't have that. Unfortunately, in an organization, you'll be lucky to have a majority like that.
Yeah.
But that's a leader's responsibility. You got to change that behavior or move them on out.
Yeah.
Don't keep them.
That's true.
Only thing I'll add to that is that credibility.
Yep.
Yes.
It's all about credibility. So
It is.
if you're going to tell somebody you're going to deliver something and you don't deliver it, then you've placed a ding on your credibility.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's all a part of your brand.
Manage your brand.
Yeah.
Yep. So moving on after that one, and this kind of ties into what Marla started off with in her response. So my first one was consistently deliver expected results, because you've got to have a baseline. You can't, If you exceed expectations occasionally, but you're not meeting a baseline all the time, it doesn't matter that you exceeded
Right.
it every once in a while.
That's true.
So you got that. That's why I start with that baseline of consistently meet expectations, or deliver the expected results. The follow up to that is set the example of high performance.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I was clear, but set the example of high performance. And what that means to me, and this is just my go-to, is exceeding expectations. Because high perform again, just because I'm looking at it from the standard of what is everyone else doing.
Mhm.
Most people are not high performing. They are not going above and beyond. They are not, and I'm not saying every single time, because that goes back to another thing that Marla said. If you're always trying to beat that beat that expected result,
Overpromise. Yeah.
you're never gonna achieve. You're never gonna get recognition for it. You're always gonna get put down when you don't meet it. So when the opportunity presents itself, exceed that expectation.
Yeah.
Go beyond the expected result. Go beyond the requirements of the department or the manager, and take advantage of those opportunities. But don't make it this is not a standard or a baseline. This is just, you see that opportunity, take that opportunity, because not everybody's going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is, you've set that baseline of, all right, I'm meeting the expectations. I'm consistent. I'm consistently doing what they desire, what the customer desires, what the leader desires, what the manager desires. Now let me take it a step further.
Yeah, that's that transformation from good to great, and how you're able to step yourself up consistently among the pack. Like, everyone's doing great, and what determines that is that you're able to step out and volunteer. You're able to provide those incremental wins. It's those small steps that
Incremental. Sorry, I'm going to keep talking on this one just because it's so important. Like, I see so many people do it. Like, they think I've got to go above and beyond all the time, every day, every hour, all the time, drive myself into a ground. Or no, I'm not going to do anything at all. I don't get paid enough to do this. Blah blah blah. It's incremental going. Taking those opportunities and taking those steps. So I love that you said that word, Alonso. Sorry, I've said my piece. I need to let other people talk.
Yeah,
you said that word, and I'm just like, yes.
Yeah, it's like there's so many gems being dropped on this panel about how our personal experiences, what we like to see, and how it's beneficial, and what we've learned along the way, and how it's so helpful. It's these dynamics that create these opportunities for our audience, and helps us to remind ourselves of how we can continue to be better.
I think incremental growth and development is more important than spurts.
Oh yeah,
spurts burn you out. You can't do that. You cannot continue to just go all out. You got to develop yourself a little bit at the time. Take advantage of things that are opportunities that are out there. If I can't go to a conference, I can go to a webinar.
Yep.
And I can learn, and then I can take that and transform that transfer of knowledge into working with other people, working with my research team, working with my students. You can always learn and develop, but you incrementally do it a little bit at the time. If not, you're going to burn out.
Yes.
Yeah, you look at it from an XY graph, and you see all this erratic behavior. It's like, okay, you're on top, then you're tanking, then you're up. It's like, instead of seeing that steady growth of, you're learning the company, you're learning the group, you're learning everything, and that steady incremental growth is more important than you're up top this month, and then next thing you know, you're substandard the next. That's that erratic stuff that teams and the manager, they can't stand, because they don't know how to predict you and how to plan for it overall.
But a leader needs to reward that incremental growth too. And a leader needs to recognize the improvement in performance. For example, I have kids that will make 30 on my first exam, and then the rest of the semester, they'll knock it out. They'll have A's and B's and so forth. If I kept that 30 in their average, that'd drop them to a C. But I'm going to reward those that showed me growth and learning and increased behavior. It can work the same way in the real world out there, is what we call it in academics. If you reward, somebody's they're going to drop. They're going to have a blip. They're going, something's going to happen. But if they're consistently doing well, don't just, harp on that one time that they messed up.
Yeah.
Reward the growth, reward the learning. And, and another thing is, from a leader standpoint, if I see people growing and doing better, that's impressing me.
Yeah.
I think that's what this was about tonight. How do you impress your folks? Leaders need to recognize that too. It's not all on the employee. It's also on the leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Grow that seed.
Yeah. All right. My next item, and I know some of my items seem out of left field, but there's a reason behind all of it. Keep track of everything you're working on.
Oh, let me get this one.
Yeah.
Let's hear it out.
Oh my goodness. This one used to wreck me back in the day, right? I used to think that I could remember everything up here, right? And you start to realize as you go up there in age, you start to realize that up there don't really hold on to too much anymore. So my recommendation is you need to find a system, right?
Mhm.
You need to create yourself a system and have fun with that part of it, right? Now, for OneNote, Notion, all that stuff didn't exist 10 years ago. It does now, right?
Mhm.
So what I believe is probably the best course of action is to start accumulating the knowledge that you get from your job. You're studying for a certification, you're learning a new skill. You need to put it in one place.
Yeah.
Those who know me know I love OneNote. And I can give you a whole list of reasons why I love it.
Yeah.
But you need to build yourself an extra brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tiago Forte wrote a book about that, the second brain, right? So this second brain is meant for all the information that you collect to go into, because our brains are designed for having ideas, not for really holding on to them. So once you start figuring out what that system is going to look like, organize it, right? And use that system for the duration of your career. Again, what happens is that because it's an essential place, you're going to be asked in a meeting to speak on a topic. You may not remember everything, right? But if you have it in a place where you can easily access it,
Mm-hmm.
you can immediately catch yourself up to speed. And oh, that's right. That's what that meant.
Yeah.
And that just makes you sound so much more intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
so much more capable when you're in your meetings, right? Or when you're out there in the world, right? Loga is a big fan of it now. Me and Loga sat down and went through some OneNote stuff. I'm quite sure Loga's smart enough to know that she's using it all the time now. It will help you.
It will.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm an Apple guy and Microsoft, but OneNote is an all-stop shop for you to put
For
anything
you too.
together.
For you
And
too.
and even if you have, like, I'm also someone, I need to fill the pages. And this is something that I learned from my wife, because like you said, I don't remember everything that I used to. Notepads.
Yeah.
And there's these black books that I find.
Man.
Yes. I've got the old school the thread bound notebooks.
Yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
those too.
Some of
I've got
these
piles
things,
and piles
like
of those.
these black hardcover grid
That's what
books,
you're talking about, yeah.
and they have like dots in them. It's like they're great for architecture. They're great for you dropping those notes in there. Everything that you need, and you can always reference them from prior projects or anything else. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Being able to say that I'm able to retain this and learn from my mistakes, list my goals for today. If I miss those goals, apply them to the next day and so forth. Yeah. It's all about what Al spoke about. It's so important.
And I keep a notebook on my desk. Don't get it twisted. Because sometimes I can't, I'm not a fast typer. I got to keep a notebook on my desk so I can write stuff down. But best believe it goes here, it's going into that one note.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mine is, so mine is kind of the opposite. So I use the app, and I have, it's like when you put too many layers between you and the idea, then you start getting more focused on getting the right, because I've had the apps, and so I realized I was just getting all over the place.
Yep.
So lined paper on the desk, that's every day. Whatever is there, get it out, because maybe you didn't have time, or you weren't at the computer or the phone or whatever. And I'm with you, Al, but if I can, it's just up. And so I have a running document, like all the things that we've trained with, with Mike with. I have a running document.
Digital, right, though, Marla? It's digital, though, right?
It's digital, yeah. So, well, what I mean is I've got my paper, but I'll type up my notes, because, I'm thinking fast, or somebody's talking fast, and I want to get it all down. And that Control F is my, I love it. I love it. So if we're in the middle of a conversation in one of our classes or whatever, I just Control F. I can tell you everything about, multi-cloud and whatever, and also add to it what I've learned during that discussion. And then I still print that out, because I either print it out, or sometimes I'll take concepts and handwrite them out, because that's when it is really solid for me. After I've done that, I'll go back through, print what I have typed, go back through with a highlighter. I'll do that. And when it's really something I'm having some time or trouble getting to stick, I will handwrite it out. And then for me, I really get things down when I can teach it to somebody.
Yes.
So I know that's when I know it, and I know where my holes are too when I go through that. But in terms of, keeping up with stuff, Al, I'm all about like the app. And I used to do Evernote, but then I realized I was typing it in. I love Evernote, but then it was just kind of in there. And it's kind of back to not having the notes anymore.
The system. It's
back to paper.
You have to find a system that works.
Yeah, you have to find a system.
For you.
Right.
My system is spreadsheets. I've got spreadsheets, tabs. Like I got 15 tabs. Alonzo, how many times have you been on a meeting with me and Mike, and I'm just like, boom, here you go.
Oh yeah, boom. He drops it. He drops it. Yeah,
drops it quick, right? Yeah. Exactly.
The data man's got it.
Works for me. Whereas Al if he tried doing this with spreadsheets, he can't be boom.
No,
he's got his OneNote, and he's able to do it. So you got to find what works for you, tracking everything that you're doing. So back to the impressing the management. Management doesn't know what you're doing. They don't know everything you're doing. So if you track everything you're doing, when the opportunity presents itself to talk about some things that you're working on that they may not know about, boom, you've got that. But if you're not tracking it and you're just doing it randomly, ad hoc doing it, it's wasted effort. I mean, not completely wasted. You accomplish something, but in furtherance of you, that opportunity was wasted. And I learned this in my hotel operations. That's how I went from managing the hotels to developing and building the hotels. I was like, I keep doing all this stuff. Boom, let me track it. Let me. Because I just started getting handed things. I started taking on additional things. And so I started tracking them, and then it just kind of further led itself to, okay, well, moving out of this role, moving on and up and out and on to better things. But if I wasn't tracking it, I wasn't able to reference it when the opportunity presented itself. It's just things that went to the wayside, accomplishments that I did, things that I worked on, savings, benefits that I gave the company, savings that I gave the company or the organization, because they're not necessarily tracking these things. It's incumbent upon you as an individual. I mean, I love the approach that you guys took. I loved the information that you shared, but tying it back to the impressing management, And it kind of goes back to something that I said earlier about, especially in this remote work world now, managers don't know that their hard workers are necessarily working themselves from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night.
Yep, that's
And
right.
so it comes back to us, got to track what we're doing, got to track everything we're doing. Realize, oh God, I'm waking up at 7 o'clock. I start working before I even get dressed. I'm on the computer and working, and oh my God, it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm still working. Not healthy. Not healthy at all. And management doesn't realize that. And I guarantee you, good managers and good leaders, if they knew that,
They don't want you to do that.
they'd be looking at, like, you can ask Leo, how many times have I gone to Leo? Because Leo came to me one time and he's like, yeah, I've started working long hours. At one point he was working too long, and I'm like, all right, Leo, here's your times. Boom, only work then. If you try to work outside this time frame, nah, I'm gonna be mad. So that's kind of where that idea came from. About tracking everything that you're doing. There's so many benefits to it for you personally, and then for your growth.
Yeah.
Got a lot of things on this list, but I'm going to narrow it down to two last ones. Leaders are leaders. They are management. They are bosses. They are not your friends.
No.
Don't share everything with your leader.
Right.
Please don't.
Don't become
Don't do
friends
Don't do
with your leaders.
No.
You know, Mike and I, we talk about cats. Like, that's perfectly fine. You know, I don't partake in recreational substances, but if I were, I would not be telling Mike that I partake in recreational substances.
Bad for you.
You know, don't share everything with your boss.
No.
Nor the coworkers.
Or the
I
coworkers.
ignore the
Exactly.
coworkers.
But even if it's something as simple as just something that may be going on at home, don't.
Yeah, you have to. Right.
There's a line that we have to keep in place. And I bring this one up just because it seems like over the past 15 years that line has gotten, a lot of people seem to have forgotten that line. I don't know if that's
They
just
get
me.
too comfortable.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just me or if it's if you guys have noticed that. Seems like people are getting too comfortable with their superiors and subordinates in the workplace. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that, and then I've got my last one to share.
Yeah, my grandfather says, "Don't get too common, if you will." It's that you have to create an environment of trust, but you have to understand to draw the line of accessibility into your personal life, especially with your coworkers, because what they know about you, they will use against you.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yes.
And even if they don't mean to, loose lips sink ships. So you say the wrong stuff in front of the wrong people that they don't understand. People, the only way to keep your personal business private is not to speak about it.
That's right.
Keep it, as they say, church and state. It's so important because a lot of people, they don't value privacy. The same people who are asking or talking to you about someone else they're going to use your business to discuss other folks. I've seen the horror stories.
It's called dry snitching.
Oh yeah.
I've never heard that. Really?
Yes.
Alonzo knows.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah.
I've had this I noticed there's like these workplace characters, I suppose. And you, after your first couple times of going from place to place, especially starting in your career, you start to see them. So there's the confidant who is trying to get you to join them in that conversation, that negative conversation about somebody else. They will take it. You will never be able to say Marla said anything about anybody. Do not be drawn in. But they will do that. There's that confidant, such and such. And then they'll say, Marla said, and then there's the, especially when I was really young, like I'm a person, I'm going to express my ideas. So when people realize I expressed my ideas, I'm not adversarial, but, hey, it's something we can do differently, right? They're all out about the thing they don't like that's going on in the department and tell you about it. And and it should be this way and it should be this way. And then it's meeting time. And they're like, anybody have any suggestions? And then, first couple of times I'm like, what about the such and such? Right. And they're crickets.
Marla said it too. You thought about that, right, Marla?
So I had to learn that it's like, I'm not going to be your Norma Ray. You need to be your Norma Ray. I'm not, if it's for me. And I think that, if anybody gets that reference, but you will find that people will try, because you're that confident person, or that person that speaks out, they're going to fill your ears and you're thinking it's going to be a group conversation. No, you're the one. So you got, like I say, confidant, the secret trouble or whatever. And then there are just some crazy people out there, and you don't necessarily will get too close to the really crazy people.
Can I piggyback off that, Marla?
Yes,
because
go ahead.
There's something I got to get out my head. Because
sure, let's do it.
A lot of folks think that they're going to get this information. You're going to hear that complaining. You're going to take that information. You're going to walk over to your boss.
Yeah.
You're going to tell your boss about the information that Harry just said. And I think that's going to get you some kudos. That is the worst thing for you to do.
Yep.
Because what the boss is going to say, as soon as you leave the office, if you found out something about me, you would be around the office scattering the drama as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the best advice I can give you is don't get into the gossip.
No gossip. Yeah.
Leave that alone.
Say, for instance, that it gets out of hand with HR. They're not going to itemize you. They're going to call everybody to the carpet. And unfortunately, if they hear your name, you're getting drawn in too. Yep. Creates a bad look, bad brand. And then all the work that you worked hard to create with your manager goes right out the window.
Yep. Credibility is gone.
All you need to do at work is just be professional, respectful, and share very little about what's going on in your personal life.
Yep.
And another thing is, when I was a leader, they would come to me, I don't like this person, I don't like that person. I always had one rule, you don't have to be friends, but when you're in this building, you will be respectful and you will be professional. You don't have to go to lunch with him. You don't have to go to drinks with him. You don't have to go to ball games with him. Matter of fact, you shouldn't do that. But, be professional, be respectful, and keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
Say that again, Johnson. Keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
Loosely shifts.
Yeah. So I want to wrap this one up, going back to the impressing the manager part of this, because we've talked about the peer aspect. So managers will respect that boundary. If they will appreciate your respect of that boundary. Good managers and good leaders and good bosses will appreciate it, and they will recognize your respect for that boundary. They will recognize that you're not over here talking about your politics and your religion and things like that at the Christmas party while everybody else is.
Right.
They'll recognize that, and they'll realize they'll recognize that trait for what it is, which is the opposite of loose lips sinks ships. I don't know what the opposite of that is, but trust, I guess, is they'll recognize that your recognition of those boundaries is beneficial to them. So that's where this concept of don't share everything with your boss, don't share everything with your peers, don't get all personal with everybody. Now, obviously, there's some degree of personality that you have to introduce in the workplace. That's fine. Redskins versus the Cowboys, great. Have fun with that all day long. But the Washington D.C. versus Texas politics, no. But sports, great. Food, great. My wife and I went to dinner at this restaurant. I think that you would like it. Great, appropriate.
Right.
Beneficial. But so that's the don't share everything. There,
No.
you got to find those things that are appropriate, that will not harm you, and that will show that you respect that boundary of that relationship.
Yeah.
We already talked. My last one we already talked about, and so I don't think there's much to say about it. But it's solve problems and be an idea person. And the tricky part about that is it a problem? If you're new, it may not be a problem. So it's just being inquisitive, making sure you understand. So if you're new and you see something, you take the approach of, hey, I noticed this, or I've become aware of this. Can you tell me more about this? But if you've been there for a while and you recognize that it is actually a problem, then be an idea person. So we talked about this earlier for a little bit. So if you guys want to add anything in, that was my last. Like I said, I got a lot on the list, but I can't get through all of them. That was the last big one that I had. Feel free to share anything on that.
Well, one of my favorite things is process improvement. So if I, and actually, I don't know if anyone's ever had like green belt or Lean Six Sigma training. It's kind of, that's what it is. And that thinking is how I like to do. So if you're in the middle of something and you can see a more efficient way to do something, it's kind of, like I said, forms creation is what started it for me. And I would just say, okay, like when I started in sales, there was one sale that didn't make it. And what could I have done to cross-check to confirm that person received his delivery? It was I remember because it was Christmas and this guy had been calling back for me and everyone was saying, she sent it, and they never sent them to me. So I should have been the person who saw that it went from point A to point B. And so I created a form that said, I look at it, it's basically a protocol. So this is the first thing I did. I sent out, this is when we had paper things. I sent a contract. I had the courier. I saw that it was delivered. And so from that point forward, I never missed anything. So for me, that's just process improvement. And I think after you have been somewhere for a while, like I say, you can learn that, maybe they don't know about new apps, for example, that could be helpful and you can introduce it. But you do have to, like Chris said, wait and observe and see how things work here. Maybe this is the only way it can be done. But ultimately, if you can offer some way to do things more efficiently, less waste, I think it's a great idea to be able to introduce that. Otherwise it's frustrating to me to keep, kind of running your head into a wall when you could just open the door or put a door there so you don't have to run your head into the wall. But that, yeah. So I'm all about that.
All right. Well, not like I said, I think we talked about it before you hopped on, Marla. So that's why I think Al and Alonzo, I think Dr. Johnson, they shared their piece about that earlier.
Sure.
So before we wrap up, Angelo, who was going to actually try and join us tonight, unable to join us, but he did pose a question in the chat box here that I'd like to close out with. And I'd like to pose it to Dr. Johnson first. So Angelo says, what role does being vulnerable play in being a leader and building trust? And I'm assuming this is vulnerable, not like vulnerable as a bad thing, but being open and vulnerable in a sense. Is it important to being a leader?
I don't know so much about vulnerable, but what I think is, open discussion, honesty, and integrity is all what it comes down to for me when it becomes a leader. You got to be able to, you got to be able to accept when people come in and show you a better way of doing something, or if there's a problem or whatever it is, you can't be defensive. There's something that I teach is called escalation of commitment. When a leader makes a bad decision and then they won't recognize the fact that they made a bad decision and they just keep pouring resources into it, that's escalation of commitment. That is detrimental to the entire team. A leader's got to be the one that's going to stand up and say, hey, gang, I made a mistake. This is not working. The leader needs to be the one to take, when they're at fault, admit that they're at fault. Sometimes even as a leader, what I would do is I would say this. When it was someone else that was at fault, I would still say, hey, This is a team problem. We need to find a way to fix it. We need to find a way to address it. I don't point people out. I don't embarrass people and that type of stuff.
No.
I don't mind taking the hit. I think it's my responsibility as a leader to guide people into making improvements, changing their behavior, and hoping that this type of situation will not happen again. Like I said earlier, I'm all about knowing when problems are coming. I can read a report. I know when things are good. Don't waste my time telling me things are good. Tell me how we can improve a situation. Marla came up with a way to improve, the way that she did things with her sales and that type of stuff. There was a company at one time in Cleveland, Chris, that no longer existed. I think it went out of business way before your time. They would give bonuses. It was a manufacturing facilities. They had a standing policy. If you can figure out a way to do it better, save us money, let us know what it is. We'll give you a bonus. It could be $500. It could be $1,000. It could be whatever it is. And people would come in and they would show a way to improve it. And then the leader would say, here's your $500. And people say, oh, you're wasting money. You know what? When they improved the process, it made them thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
It was an investment. Too many times, leaders don't want to invest in their good people. They don't want to invest in the growth of their people.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps that answered the question. May have went off base, but
no.
I've got I got a flip side to this, which just happened to correlate from almost an hour and a half ago. Just they tied directly together based on your response just now. Greg said, what if the people on the team that actually know the best practice are in conflict with management's implementation plans? Is it better to toe the line and do the wrong thing or exit? And it just, your answer that you gave was about leaders recognizing when they're wrong. Well, what if leaders don't recognize when they're wrong?
They're dragging their team right off the cliff.
So as a subordinate, my response to this would be, if you know that it's detrimental to the organization and the company, it's your responsibility to bring it to that leader's attention.
Mm-hmm.
If that leader continues down that path, then follow the chain of command.
And document.
You have to. If it's in the best interest of the company or in the best interest of the customer, and the person that has the responsibility has relinquished or ignored that responsibility, obviously you attempt to bring it to their attention, attempt to right the ship, but if it doesn't work, then follow your chain of command.
Look, you made a good point. Documentation is very important. I always tell when I talk about communication, I always tell folks, when you have a conversation one-on-one, like if I'm talking with Alonzo and he's my boss and we have a conversation and he tells me I want you to do A, B, C, D. I said, okay, I'm going to go back a lot of times and I'm going to write an email, maybe not in the next 10 minutes, but I'm going to write an email. I'm going to put it together politically correct, nice email. And I'm basically saying, this is what I understand you want me to do.
Mm-hmm.
A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay. A good leader, if I misunderstood him or her, they're going to come to me and say, no, now, wait a minute. A and B is right. But, C and D, we may need to find either. A bad leader, which I think is what this question is dealing with Greg has come up with. A bad leader may ignore it and so forth, but you have your documentation where you try to suggest an improvement. Maybe we need to look at it this way. Is it possible that don't just from a subordinate's position, you don't come out and hammer the leader. You try to, make suggestions. Maybe consider this. Maybe, and if they come back and say no, we're not going to do it. Okay. Thank you, big boy.
You can
But be careful.
Start it off.
Be careful about going around that leader.
Right.
Yeah.
You better be careful. That follow that chain of command is okay at times, but you be careful. Choose those battles.
Yes, documentation and data. You guys know me. I'm a data guy. So part of your documentation, if it's wrong, The data will show it's wrong.
Mhm.
Right.
The data will show that it's not working and that it's detrimental. It's your responsibility to show that. And if they ignore it and continue down that path, then that's where you decide if you pick the battle and
Yeah.
go beyond. So
Mm.
I know Al was about to say something.
I was going to say that you're going to be in situations where you're going to have to write a business case, right?
Mhm.
Let's say if you had a good leader, right? And you realize that something wasn't working right? As professionals, you're going to be asked often to say, it's not that the leader won't change his mind, but you're going to have to give him a business case for why he needs to change his mind, right? So, keep that in mind, that a lot of the time you're going to have to convince leadership that the idea that you might have or the suggestion that you might have is worth considering.
Mhm.
So get good at writing business cases. They don't have to be long epistles.
Okay.
They have to just be to the point, and they have to be solution based as well.
Yep.
Yes.
And I've done that, and it works when you have good leaders, and sometimes it just doesn't work because you have a bad leader who's more interested maybe in their next promotion. And
Right.
I've had that very specific thing. I brought it to the vice president, and it was pretty stressful position, and this would have made everyone's lives easier. But what I had to do, and just to Greg's question, was actually level with my clients. I had to, get close enough to them to say, okay, here, I know this is what you needed. This is what, we have promised as a business to you, but I just don't have the tools. It's just not available for me to do it in the timeline that you've been promised. So let me just level with you. And then I just made arrangements with each of those people to explain that this is why it'll take a little bit longer. I checked in with them throughout the process to say I'm still working on it. So I had to really come up with my own way, because I did my due diligence on the business case and everything. But in terms of what do you do, eventually I exited because it was a burnout position. We weren't paid enough for what we were doing. We're handling major business, and nobody was listening to this very important request from not just me. It was a known issue, but I did take it to the vice president myself, and realized that he just didn't want a third question. So I just took care of it with my clients. Did well at that particular position, but just interviewed on out and left, and actually a lot of us did over a short period of time.
That underscores everything that we've been talking about. You use your strategy, which I have realized internally. You speak with your team members individually to build those relationships, remediate issues, build that trust. And you did the same thing with your customers individually to remediate issues and build that trust. Now, there's a lot of things, like my experience is that there was a team leader that I had to deal with, which was pretty painful because they didn't care anymore because they were leaving. And so anything regarding any projects, they were no longer invested because they put their mind elsewhere, although physically their bodies haven't followed suit. So it's really hard to deal in that particular niche time frame. But one thing that people need to prepare for as well is, although you're doing the right thing, how to handle the fallout. What's going to happen once you pull that bell, you pull that proverbial brake on the train, and people want to know what happened, why is it happening? That particular blast radius may involve you having to answer some hard questions, although you're right. But understanding that having to deal with that fallout with the right people, you may have to reposition yourself in the organization, or you may have to outright leave for the benefit of your career moving forward. There's a lot of causality and effect to have to deal with that, but doing the right thing is always the right thing to do.
Yep, I agree. And just to circle back, my initial response was given I wouldn't say an ideal situation, but an ideal company that would handle things in the manner that their policies and procedures are presented. Now, what Marla shared is more often than not, it happens. It's we all deal with that. I've dealt with it. I've exited, but not before trying to do it. And I think that's kind of what this boils down to, is that I don't think the exit should not be your first attempt. No. We were given two options: toe the line or exit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I don't think any of us went straight to exit.
Yeah.
Because the exit, because that you do not give up at first difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a way to impress your boss.
You know what's a good example for this from a business perspective? How many times were people inside of Blockbuster Video trying to tell them to evolve their workflow, evolve their technology, evolve how they're meeting and servicing customers, and someone there made that deadly decision that cost the company its life.
Yep.
You know, I always see those memes about Blockbuster. Just, it's terrible. But yeah, it's something for people to remember about the cost of leadership and the decision should it go wrong if you're not listening to your people.
Yeah. All right. So we got to wrap it up, everybody. I want to thank Marla and Al for joining us. I want to thank Dr. Johnson for joining us.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate y'all helping us fill in the gap.
Glad to be here. I always love talking to you guys.
Yeah, it was awesome. We had a great time. Always have a chance to catch up with Marla. We're from the same hometown.
That's right.
Al and I, we always establish a great bond since he got here. And, Dr. Cooper Johnson is always awesome. This guy has the best poker face I've ever seen. So it is great to speak with everybody.
That one was difficult as a teenager. trying to figure that one out.
Being a husband.
That part.
So does anybody want to share any last words? I know we've gone quite a bit over time. So
I had a blast. That's all.
I had a good time. It was fun.
Same here.
Same here. Thanks.
See you guys next time.
All right. Thank you, everybody. So everybody watching us on YouTube, you might get a second iteration of this with Mike. Again, this was Mike's topic of choice. Impressing management versus impressing your peers. So I got a feeling that Mike might want to join and do another round of this. So we'll see what he has to say. Greg B spent almost 6 hours with us today. Oh, 6 hours with you, Alonzo, not me. Right? So, all right. Well, we will wrap it up now. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. See everybody in class on Thursday. Well, I'll see you in class on Friday. I'm teaching. So, and I'll see all of you YouTubers next week. So, bye-bye.
Great. See you guys.